New Hampshire is no stranger to UFO reports and encounters. Betty and Barney Hill, the Exeter incident, they are both cornerstones of UFO research and folklore. The list of people who have seen something in the night sky they can't explain seems to outnumber the people who haven't in New Hampshire. But skeptics cry out, where's the physical evidence? Well, tonight I want to share a lesser-known story that is based just on the physical evidence left behind. I want to be clear here. Nobody involved in this case claimed UFOs were involved. This includes the UFO researcher who investigated the case. This being said, it seems the government went to great lengths to cover something up. I'm Chris.
I'm Kathy.
I'm Sean.
And this is Weirder After Dark. So today we're going to talk about a very unknown and very local incident that I can't quite explain.
I heard in the intro, Chris, another New Hampshire based.
Oh,
why do we live here?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like the one thing this podcast has taught me so far is that there are so many alien incidences in New Hampshire and I'm scared of them and I live in the wrong spot.
Yeah, you need to move, bro.
I need to move.
What was the thing in the news recently about?
Yeah, Sean was telling me about that. The government bought the domain name alien.com.
Alien.gov. Government website. Alien.gov.
What is that?
What does that
did they
mean?
explain it?
No explanation as of right now, but Donald Trump, boo, he came out a couple weeks ago and probably as part of the Epstein cover-up is basically saying that he was demanding that all parts of the government release all the information available on UFOs. And then this happens a couple weeks later. Is this a step in that direction to distract us from, pedophilia?
I think it's a distraction.
Full disclosure or, what's going on here?
Well, yeah.
Or is it about illegal aliens in the country? Like he wants alien.gov.
Yeah, if we take anything that we learned from the Epstein files, it's going to be mostly redacted, and the stuff that's going to be non-redacted is just going to be like the names of the witnesses.
Yeah.
Claim to see the UFOs.
Witnesses, victims.
Yeah.
You got the names of the aliens.
Yeah.
Everything else is that.
That or, I don't know, fun theory here, aliens.gov, is it just a new ICE website?
That's what I was thinking, right?
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, I don't know, but...
Fuck ICE.
Yeah.
So we're off to a great start.
Yeah.
Today, I want to take you back to New Hampshire in the dead of winter. Now, I know we just came out of the dead of winter. I don't want to go back either, but we have to go back for this story, so I'm sorry. I'm taking you back.
Yeah, I'm out.
We're going back to January 10th, 1977. William McCarthy is working on his horse farm in Wakefield, New Hampshire, when he comes across a strange sight on the pond on his property. A perfectly circular 3-foot in diameter hole in the ice. The high temperature that day was in the teens, and this small pond had been frozen over for months. What could cause this strange hole to appear overnight? The hole was approximately 18 inches deep and filled with slush. I want to stop right there. A farmer found a hole in the ice on his property, right? So what?
But was it perfectly circular?
Perfectly circular.
That is weird.
That's the weird. That's the weird part.
Yeah.
Like,
The hole was described as a 3-foot perfect circle, like you were saying, is roughly the size of a manhole cover. So if you go ice fishing and you use an auger to cut a hole in the ice, the standard size is in between 4 to 8 inches wide.
This is much bigger.
Yeah. And by the way, there's no fish in this pond. It's like a horse pond. It's for the horses to drink from.
So no one's fishing. Okay.
Yeah, nobody's fishing there.
Okay.
What can make a perfect circle that wide? Well, if you brought in a tractor and you got a 30-inch wide auger bit, you could drill that size hole. But again, why? And it's worth mentioning that William reported he did not see any vehicle tracks or signs of anybody who was near his pond that morning.
I was going to say it's on his property.
It's on his property, yes. He also reported he didn't hear anything out of the ordinary the night before. So this is a very small man-made pond for his horses to drink from, maybe 4 to 5 feet deep at its greatest depth, and again, with no fish in it. So who or what made this hole? Also, the ice was 18 inches thick. I looked at the New Hampshire Fish and Game website, and they reported to drive a car onto a lake or pond, it needs to be 8 inches thick before they recommended driving on it. When you see a pond hockey tournament or people driving the truck to the middle of the lake so they can fish from the bob house, we're talking about 8 inches of ice. So we know a branch did not fall and make this hole.
Who was the first person that decided to take their vehicle onto ice and figure out if it was going to work or not? The courage and the balls it takes to be the first person to try that. Even if I see other people doing it, I'm not taking my vehicle on ice. I don't know. That's just me.
Did you hear about the case where the woman drove her, I think it was her brother-in-law's truck out onto the ice. It was like supposedly thick enough to hold it, and the truck ended up going into the water.
That's what I'm saying. No.
Yeah, no,
It was like, oh my God, that brother-in-law must be pissed.
Yeah.
I'm nervous about walking on the ice, let alone driving on
Yeah.
it.
Hell yeah.
So, but this was 18 inches deep. We know that something very hot or something very heavy must have made this hole.
Mm.
And it was still slushy inside of it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Keep that in mind. Also, this was the winter of 1977. This is the winter that every weatherman in New England refers to as the worst winter ever.
Oh, yeah, the blizzard of 77?
Yes, every time we get a snowstorm, the weatherman has to refer to the winter of 77. I think it's a contractual obligation for them. And then people who lived through the winter of 77 have to tell you about their experience of the great blizzard of 77.
Back in my day.
Yeah. Guess what? I was not alive. I do not care. In fact, I feel comfortable saying I speak for everyone who is not alive and does not remember the winter of 77. Stop talking about it. A little bit of a tangent, but I felt like it had to be said. The point here is that this is a very strange and still, in my opinion, unexplained hole in the ice. And if that's where the story ended, this would just be weird. But it gets a lot stranger. William, using a stick, moved the slush out of the way. Then he saw what he described as a black cube, roughly 1 foot square, sitting on the pond's mucky bottom. Yeah, directly underneath the hole in his pond. So he could not make out any features, latches, or opening. He just described it as a black cube. Later reports by the government would call it a black box. Kind of like you think about an aircraft that collects flight data in the case of an emergency. But William didn't use the word box. He described what he saw instead as a cube. While this sounds like I'm splitting hairs here, black box conjures up images of an indestructible part of an airplane that records flight data. Cube suggests something less familiar.
Like more organic, too.
Or maybe more organic. So as we get deeper into the story, I thought it was worth mentioning the slight change in language. Also, I looked it up. A plane's black box is not actually black. It's painted bright orange, so it's easy to find in a plane crash, which makes so much more sense.
So why do they call it a black box?
That is a great question. I did not look any further into it.
Okay.
And also, is it shaped like a suitcase? What does it look like? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea. No,
okay, so I looked it up here, and you're right. That is like kind of a rectangle, but clearly not a cube.
Yeah.
Nothing
Yeah.
I'm describing.
Yeah,
as a
it's
cube.
an orange box with writing on it and reflective tape.
Yeah. Interesting.
So William did what any of us would do. He grabbed a rake from the barn and he started to poke at the black cube.
I mean, it checks
Yeah.
out.
Right, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
He tried to remove the box from the pond using the rake, but he just ended up pushing it further into the muck and mud. So not knowing where it came from and not knowing what it did or why it was there and all of this not making any sense to him, he decided to call the police. The local police arrived. They looked in the strange hole. And they also poked the strange black cube with a rake, because what else would you do?
Yeah, for the boys.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was first reading this, I was thinking, is that really the correct police protocol in these situations when you don't know what it is? And I thought, what would I have done differently?
Yeah.
And if I was a police officer, I quickly admitted to myself that I would probably just poke it with a rake too.
Yeah.
So the police and William guessed, due to the strange hole, an unidentified black cube on the bottom of the pond, it could have been a part of an airplane or even a piece of space junk that fell from a satellite. This was not a bad guess. What else could hit the pond with enough speed to create that hole? It must have been going incredibly fast or be incredibly hot. While this doesn't explain the perfect 3-foot circle, it's a good guess. It's the best guess that they could come up with at the time. One of the officers called the FAA. The FAA tracks all planes in the air over the United States at all times. The FAA reported there were no issues with any planes for a 200-mile radius last night or for the past week. So the missing part of a plane theory seemed to be out. They then called NORAD, the U.S. office that tracks meteors and space debris that's falling back to Earth. NORAD also reported there was no activity in the last few days in the area.
I appreciate that they're doing all that legwork and research, but it's a cube.
Yeah.
There's no way an asteroid or a comet or a meteor or whatever is a cube landing.
Yeah.
Like,
It's funny because when I first started researching this story, I was like, the local cops are poking at it with a stick. But then I'm kind of impressed with their investigating so far, right? Calling NORAD and the FAA. That seems like
they
they're on top
started
of it.
caveman and actually they turned into scientists.
Yeah. So later that morning, the two local police and William were standing on the pond, looking in the hole, poking the black box with a rake, and the National Guard showed up to investigate. So let's just point this out right here. We have a strange hole in a pond with a black cube at the bottom. That's strange, right? But is it strange enough to send the National Guard out to the site?
That is definitely a red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is not days or weeks after. This is literally within hours of the original call to the police. This seems suspect to me.
100%.
Yeah, I'm not going full Roswell yet, but
I
it's
am.
strange that the National Guard would get involved in a hole in the ice in the back of a farmer's house.
Yeah, they were mobilizing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this has triggered something to mobilize the National Guard to send them there. Like,
Within
the government
hours.
is triggering something. This totally feels like the Roswell incident, like, hands down.
They're coming in to take care of whatever is going on and then clean it up, move it, get a story in place.
Yeah. And you got to think, too, this is the 70s. So this is coming off the heels of the UFO craze that's going on
Yeah.
right now. So, oof.
But also the height of the Cold War, too.
Ooh, very true. Very
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Gang, we've been talking about it for months, but they're finally here. We've officially started collaborating with Ghost Poppy on 3 uniquely Weirder After Dark candles, and they're available right now.
Our first one is simply branded Weirder After Dark, and it's everything you would expect when sitting around a campfire, sharing stories with your friends in New England.
Hints of maple, clove, earth, smoked amber, pine, cedar, patchouli, a true hanging out by the fire vibe.
We'll also have 2 scents inspired by 2 of our favorite Weirder After Dark tales.
The first being Chris's story on Boone Island.
Guys, wait, wasn't that one about cannibalism?
It sure was, but it also takes place on an island off the rocky coast of Maine, and that's what you can expect with this candle.
Think scents of moss, earth, juniper, bergamot, ozone, the fresh sense of being on an island after an intense thunderstorm.
That sounds so much nicer than what I was thinking. Thank you, guys.
So much nicer. And lastly, a scent inspired by the Voynich manuscript, a story we were all captivated by. And for this one, imagine yourself peaceful and curiously reading an ancient manuscript in a quiet library.
You'll get the scents of bergamot, eucalyptus, balsam, leather, and patchouli.
And you can feel good about buying these candles. Why?
Because it's made by a small US-based business, and they've been such a pleasure to work with. Carla and her husband Sean make these candles by hand. They're 100% soy-based, vegan, paraben, and sulfate and cruelty-free, which means absolutely no nasty chemicals and all the good feels for you.
So gang, if you're loving these episodes and want to support us, head over to ghostpoppy.com and find the Weirder After Dark collection. The link will be in the description and pick up some of your own candles today. It would absolutely mean the world.
Thanks.
Now, I would love to tell you that the National Guard came in and poked the black cube with a rake. That would have been fucking amazing, but that's not what they did.
Boo.
Stupid National Guard.
They took careful measurements of the hole and the pond, the temperature around the hole, and they used a Geiger counter to check the amount of radiation around the pond. The Geiger counter meter measured dangerous levels of radiation. They ordered William and the 2 local cops to stay 200 yards away from the pond until further notice. William took this warning seriously and went back to his house.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Because now you're removing like the only fair witness probably to whatever's about to happen.
Yes.
200 yards
And
away.
was there really radiation?
Yeah.
Ooh, we'll get into that.
Because like we're coming off the Cold War, right? So
Yeah.
everybody was like concerned with, nuclear power and all that jazz.
Ooh, I'm excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, I want to take a minute and just break that down further because that's really interesting, the point you guys just brought up. There's an interesting cue for us in the investigation by the National Guard so far. If this was an airplane part or even a piece of a satellite, why would they even consider measuring radiation coming off this black cube? And further, why in the world would this black cube be giving off dangerous levels of radiation? We can't say for sure that the National Guard knew what they were looking for or had any real insight into what was at the bottom of the pond. But we can't say that you don't test for radiation unless there's an X-ray machine or a nuclear device at the bottom of the pond, right? And why were they so quick to be there in the first place? Like we said, it's the 70s. There's a Cold War going on. Maybe radiation testing was part of their protocol when they found something they couldn't identify. But just all feels very strange so far.
It does. It definitely does. And it was almost like the fact that they got there so fast, were they already looking for something? Like,
Yeah. You got the phone calls to NORAD and the FAA. I mean, they showed up within hours of the original police call.
Do you know if there were other cases of similar cubes?
Not that I know about, no. So William followed orders. He did not want to risk his or his family's or his horse's life, and he went back to the house and avoided the pond like his life depended on it. Because at the time, he believed his life depended on it. Later that night, William received a call from State's Attorney General Greg Smith. Smith told William in no uncertain terms he was not to talk about the black box or the strange hole in the ice. He did not explain why. He didn't offer any explanations as to what was going on or why he was involved. Just a direct order from the top cop in the state. So let's stop right there. We just introduced a very strange fact. the state's attorney general, the head prosecutor of the state of New Hampshire, calls William personally to tell him not to talk about the strange incidents at his pond. What is going on there?
I don't know. It's definitely building cover up or something.
If they had been smarter and they just wanted it to like blow over and not have people look at it, then just be quiet about it. Just be like, oh, we tested it. We removed it. This, it's not a big deal.
Nothing to see here.
Yeah.
Instead, they're like clearly making it seem like there's a cover up.
Why would the state's general attorney even get involved in the first place? His job is to prosecute things. The guy's done nothing wrong. So to be completely transparent and fair here, the only reason we know about this phone call is because William reported it. The state's attorney's office never confirmed or denied this phone call ever happened. But at this point in the story, we don't really see any motivation for William to make up this phone call either. So it's just more mystery piled on top of what the fuck really happened here. That night, or early the next morning to be more precise, William noticed 2 cars on his property about 2 a.m. He assumed it was more testing by the National Guard and went back to bed. These 2 cars came and went without knocking on William's door or notifying him in any way they were coming or what they were doing on his property. So what were they doing under the cover of night? We can only guess. The next day, the state police showed up, members of the National Guard returned, and officials from the Pentagon showed up at the house as well. None of them wearing hazmat suits, so Williams assumed it was safe to go back to the site. After all, they were still on his property. He kind of wanted to know what was going on. Strange enough, the hole in the ice did not freeze back over at all, despite sub-zero temperatures recorded that night. Now, I'm not a scientist or a physicist, but I think I know how ice works, and 30-plus hours of freezing temperatures later, there should have been ice in that hole. I, for one, have never driven my pickup truck out into the middle of the lake to cut a hole in the ice to go fishing. I love fishing, but I hate the cold. This is not something I have direct experience, but I can say with some confidence that that hole should have froze back over at some point within a few hours of the sub-freezing temperatures. It's another strange fact, and we get to throw in here. Under the direction of the officials from the Pentagon, the National Guard drained the pond. The ice was chipped away. Yeah, they drained the pond. The ice was stripped away and removed. An extensive search of the bottom of the pond was conducted.
They're taking this so seriously.
So they're looking for something else besides the black cube?
We don't know.
Well, why else would they do that?
Good question. So they found nothing. No black cube, no black box, no airplane parts, no meteor, no space debris, nothing, just mud and muck.
What? No cube?
No cube was there.
They already moved the cube before they did this.
Maybe the 2 cars that showed up at 2 a.m. removed the cube. We don't know.
Yeah.
So somehow the direction of tell nobody about this wasn't followed. We don't know by who for sure, but somebody called the media. So by afternoon, you had the state police, the National Guards, officials from the Pentagon, and now a dozen or so reporters hanging out in Williams Farm looking at the empty pond where there used to be a strange hole in the ice and a black cube. They conducted interviews and snapped pictures of the pond and went home to write their stories. Can I just say at this point, William is a more patient man than I am. No one has given him any answers. They destroyed his pond, and he's like, yeah, come look at where my pond used to be to anybody who drives up to his property. Is there a Saint William yet? Because he might be up for sainthood at this point.
Yeah, you guys want to see my old pond?
Yeah.
I used to feed my horses here.
Yeah, there used to be a pond there. The government took it. I ain't bitter.
They seized my pond. Back taxes, they say.
Oh, poor William.
So at the end of the day, the reporters, the officials from the Pentagon, the state police, the National Guard, they all packed up and left. William was told his pond was safe to go back to, but no other information was offered.
But there's no pond.
Well, yeah. You go back to where his pond used to be.
You can go back to that dirt hole.
Yeah. We left the folding chair for you.
Yeah.
There's no radiation.
Mean, if you think about it, this really is the perfect cover-up story, right? Something weird happens. They come in, they remove it while they're like, stay away, don't come down here. And then they're like, oh, we're going to search the pond for it. Oh, no, it's not there. And then mysteriously, like, people come in and they're like, oh, yeah, so just in case William starts talking about it, now they have coverage of like, well, there was nothing there. We drained the pond.
Yeah,
Nothing's
we drained
there.
the pond. Nothing was there, and
we did what
everything's
we were
fine.
To do.
We're going to pack up and go.
There's nothing, nothing there. I don't know what it was.
Yeah. And there's no follow-up. They all just packed up and went home.
Yeah.
So on January 13th, all the local papers published this story. They talked about the strange hole, the black box, the special attention from the Pentagon, the call to the FAA, to NORAD, the call from the state's attorney, and the dangerous radiation levels. On January 15th, the governor's office put out an official report that stated the Geiger counters numbers were incorrect and were due to faulty equipment, and there was no risk of radiation poisoning to the public. Now, notice I said Geiger counters, plural. This was the official report from the New Hampshire governor's office. If it was a typo, okay. But if the report was actually correct, then that means there was more than one Geiger counter.
And they were both wrong.
At least two or more Geiger counters.
That's bullshit.
Yeah. If there was just one.
If there was one, okay,
Maybe.
I'll buy it. Multiple Geiger counters that didn't work, that's more suspect. And an interesting fact to ponder as we go a little further down this rabbit hole. Also that day, 3 professors from UNH put together a joint statement confirming that the hole was made by space junk falling from a defunct satellite that was no longer in use.
But that doesn't make any sense either, because it's a cube that made a perfectly round 3-foot hole in the ice.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make any sense either.
Now, how they confirmed this and why there was a perfect 3-foot hole diameter in the ice, they didn't offer. They just said there was no further risk of falling debris at this time. Another report came out that day from Professor Alan Baker at UNH, stating that he concluded that the hole did not freeze back over, and that was due to, quote, unusually severe weather, unquote.
What?
Yeah, let that sink in. That was his entire statement. So we can say for sure that the official reason given by a professor at UNH through the government's office was a strange hole in the ice would not freeze back over due to severe weather.
I don't get this. Yeah.
Like, so what? It's so cold and freezing, it won't freeze.
Yeah.
Winter of 77.
It was too cold.
It was too cold for ice to form. You guys not buying it?
Yeah, this is sketchy.
All right, good. You're in good company. This was not believed by John Oswald, a researcher from the Center for UFO Research, either. He flew in from Wyoming and spent several days in and around the property looking for any evidence of a spacecraft coming into contact with Williams Farm. His investigation concluded he could not find any evidence of any signs of a UFO encounter. He did register his investigation and all of the notes with the Center for UFO Research for public view. Unlike all of the government agencies that investigated Williams Farm, you can actually look that information up. So what are we to make of all of this? You have a very strange hole in the ice that for me remains unexplained. A hole that did not freeze back over despite freezing temperatures for over 30 hours. You have William and the 2 police officers reporting a black cube at the bottom of the pond. You have one, possibly several Geiger counters recording dangerous levels of radiation to the point they quarantined off the entire area. You have the state police, the National Guard, the Pentagon, all coming out to see a strange hole in the ice in some farmer's backyard. You have the alleged phone call from the state's district attorney. You have 2 cars going on the property at 2 a.m. without identifying themselves and then leaving before the sun came up. And then you have these really strange explanations by these experts asking you to believe that space junk hit a pond and it didn't freeze over due to severe weather. What do you guys make of all this so far?
I know earlier I said organic, and maybe you can edit that out because I was thinking organic, but nothing organic is perfectly like flat on all 4 sides to make a cube.
Cube is, you don't have right angles in nature.
Yeah. So that goes to say, like, I don't think it would be like an asteroid or something like that. And then how does a cube make the circle hole unless the hole was created to drop the cube? Like, that's the only thing that I could think of, like, that would happen. And then draining the pond and all that stuff, I think is just a cover up. I think that's just their way of like hiding what happened.
Well, I think it's worth mentioning here that William never profited off this story. He never really talked about it officially again with anybody. No UFO conventions, no book deals, no HBO specials. He just kind of went back to running his horse farm. So I see him as a very credible witness. He never talked about this again.
Yeah, and he didn't profit. Because I was thinking that when you were talking about it, I was like, maybe he was the one that like called the news thing saying like, ooh, I can like cash in. Like, was he like in trouble losing his land? Was he hoping that it was going to draw people in and he could like make a profit? But it sounds like he didn't.
But he never really tried and he never really publicized the story at all.
This one's confusing.
Yeah, I know. This is why I like the story because I don't know.
The closest theory that strikes my, scratches an itch for me is like the space debris is kind of interesting. If something from like a satellite Satellites were brand new at the time, right? In the 60s and 70s. I know the Russians would put like nuclear powered batteries on satellites. So could that have been something that fell from the sky? But the perfect circle.
Yeah, the perfect circle.
Would it, if it was a cube falling, does it maintain its cube shape as it goes through the atmosphere?
Yeah, wouldn't it burn up and like be destroyed around the edges?
It depends on what the cube was made of.
And I have a question really quickly. If there was radiation from the cube, could that affect the water, so causing it not to freeze?
Yeah, probably.
I mean,
maybe, if it's still giving off heat at the bottom.
Yeah.
And then if you play it out, like maybe it wasn't a perfect cube. Like if you're looking through a circle, right, of ice, and you're looking through water, there's refraction that's happening from what you're seeing at the bottom.
And it's mucky and muddy.
So maybe it looked like a cube, but it wasn't perfect, so it was burned up. Like, so I'm like, maybe that's the closest thing I can get to, but not perfect circles.
The circle is what really, really kills me. Because I mean, I think if it was anything that like randomly fell from the sky, I think it would have had a bigger impact than a 3-foot circle because of the speed.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I feel like the diameter of the landing would have been bigger.
Yeah.
I mean, if the cube is actually giving off radiation and the radiation's coming up, the circle might make sense. But how to get to the bottom of the pond in the first place?
Wait,
so
how do you think the circle makes sense?
Because radiation's going to, doesn't stay in its cube shape. It goes out at all angles.
Right.
So it would create a circle.
That would make a perfect circle?
It would create a circle, I would think. I'm not a nuclear engineer, but I would think it would create a circle.
But
because
when it hit the ice, it would have broken or cracked the ice. They certainly wouldn't still be able to like walk out on it. Wouldn't that have like made the ice more dangerous for them to physically be on?
My best guess, and this is completely just a guess, I'm not a nuclear physicist, is a black cubish thing that was radioactive got accidentally dropped. It hit this pond. The radiation melted a hole in the ice. And as the radiation was coming up through the water, it didn't keep its cube shape. It made this circle in the ice. But what was it, and why were so many people interested in that part's still a big question for me. I think something happened.
I was just doing some quick Google searching, and I searched like what would radiation do to ice, and it says surface melting, radiation induced. Radiation can lead to pre-melting, where a layer of liquid forms on ice's surface even below normal freezing points.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
Okay.
If it was radioactive enough, giving off enough heat,
yeah,
you could go through 18 inches of
the perfect
ice.
circle is still losing me.
That's where I'm lost. Like, I just don't understand the perfect circle.
Okay.
Play it out, though, that if it was like something, a nuclear element of a Russian satellite, you could also see the U.S. government not wanting Russian nuclear material found in New Hampshire. They wouldn't want that coming out during the Cold War.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
Or for Russia to find out that we had it. Yeah.
So what do I think? Do I think aliens were involved? I can't rule it out, but I also can't rule it in. Was there something at the bottom of the pond that was interesting enough to get officials from the Pentagon to come to rural New Hampshire? Yes, that's not up for dispute. Did somebody take a black cube at 2 a.m. on the cover of night? It certainly looks that way, but we don't know who or why. Does severe cold keep ice from forming? No, that's just a really dumb answer, and anyone who passed the third grade science class can tell you that's just a really dumb answer. So I'm really at a loss for this one because, most of these alien encounters, it's eyewitness accounts, right?
Yeah.
And this is all just physical evidence.
Here's a crazy theory. Could there be a situation where the object was already there?
That's another.
And then the ice froze over, the radiation, again, causing a perfect circle. Strange, but could it have already been there, froze over? He discovered it because the melting ice?
But his horses are drinking from it. So his horses would have eventually, like if he has horses and they're drinking from that pond every day, and it takes 18 inches of ice, that's a long time for it to be sitting in there.
Yeah.
And
I remember him reporting, this hole in the ice was brand new. It wasn't there the day before. He's working his farm every day. He would have noticed it. Yeah.
But could the hole have been someone coming to, maybe they knew the radiation was there. Maybe there's some satellite picking up radiation.
Yeah.
The government's there drilling a hole at night while he's sleeping, trying to quietly get the cube out.
Right.
They didn't finish it and get everything. Woke up the next day, found the hole. Holy shit. Like, maybe that's it. Maybe it's a bigger cover up than we're even talking about.
I don't think it's aliens either. But I can say that I think there's enough evidence here that the government was covering up
For sure.
whatever they were doing on that
something.
farm. That seems pretty clear.
Such a cool story.
I still don't get the 3-foot perfect circle, but say the circle wasn't perfect. It was just a description.
Yeah.
I think that's probably, when it comes to circle, I think that's
And then the call
answer.
came into the FAA or the NORAD.
Red
Government
flag
says,
started going off.
we know where it is now.
Yeah.
And they sent out officials.
That's a good point. Something falls on top of the ice.
Yep.
It's radioactive and it
And
slowly,
it slowly
melts it way down.
That could happen
have to be
overnight.
giving off a lot of heat. I mean, I've seen people have bonfires on the ice and not have it melt.
What happened to the land after the water was drained? Because if it's that much radiation, would it have some sort of
He
trace
went
afterwards?
back to horse farming. I did no real
But did the
reports
pond
after that.
fill up with water?
Yeah,
and
I'm assuming.
nothing weird happened.
Yeah, I'm assuming it was a man-made pond for his horses. So I'm assuming he just put
Put more water
more
back
water
into
in it, or it rains. Yeah.
Another mystery that we may never know the answer to.
I just am very disappointed that you think that the government would cover things up and hide it from us.
That's true. Yeah.
Chris, what are you thinking?
America.
Shame on you.
Well, Chris, fascinating story. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I found it really fascinating too, and it's right in our backyard, and I've never heard this one before.
Me neither.
I'm kind of jealous that I didn't take the story.
And gang, we hope you enjoyed it too. And if you did, make sure you go ahead and check out our Instagram. That is at Weirder After Dark, where Chris will be going ahead and dropping some photos. I don't know, maybe articles, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know what to drop because there was only a couple of newspaper articles and a couple of podcasts that covered it, but there wasn't a lot of information out there.
Well, whatever we can dig up and find, we'll make sure we drop that on the Instagram. And don't forget, it's not just Instagram. We are out there building some community, which means you can head over to
Timmy.
Reddit, Facebook, or Instagram. Again, that is at Weirder After Dark, where you can talk not only us, but other listeners who are enjoying these episodes just like you. And don't forget, we are always on the hunt for your weird New England stories. And I know we have some people out there that we have yet to respond to. Thank you so much for sending them. We will get at that ASAP. Send your weird New England tales. Have weird things fallen on your backyard pond? And has the National Guard randomly showed up and told you, yo, bro, it's 200 yards that way? Because if they have, we want to hear that story, or anything on aliens, ghosts, whatever you got, send it to thegang@weirderafterdark.com. Lastly, don't forget that if you are liking this shit, if you are absolutely in love with this shit, the best thing that you can do for us is to go ahead and leave a like and a comment on the Weirder After Dark's page of wherever it is that you are listening. And don't forget, it always gets a little weirder after dark.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.